Alright folks, today I'm going to be showing you how I made the Elder Scroll from Skyrim, which is this thing from this game. By the way, this video is sponsored by this thumb that I cut at work. Don't ask about it. It's embarrassing, okay? Here we go. This should be less distracting. Maybe. So basically the scroll has two parts to it. It's got the middle and it's got the limbs. I started with the limbs in this case, and I subdivided the limb into 7 different parts. So for this part right here, I'm going to call it piece number 1. I made that 3 layers of 10mm foam thick and cut it into a circle with my bandsaw. And because this is a truncated cone, I also used the bandsaw to make the bevel. I had to kind of tilt the table of the bandsaw to make it cut at that angle. Now because this piece has a bit of detail on it, I just wrapped the piece in aluminum foil and duct tape, and then used a Sharpie to mark where exactly that piece goes. Then I transferred that piece of duct tape onto foam, and I cut all the details out using an X-Acto knife. Then I just glue that on like I do with everything else. Now for piece number 2, it's also a truncated cone, but I didn't do that same method this time. And this one was 7 layers thick. And I cut it to shape and added the bevel the exact same way as the first piece. As for the detail, I just cut out little strips of 2mm foam and glued on a total of 24 of those guys.
I think there were 24 in all.
And as you can see here, the details on pieces 1 and 2 align. Now I'm going to draw a line here because I used the same exact method for pretty much every piece after this. So I'll just go over them real quick. Piece number 3 was 6 layers thick and had those sort of emblems carved in on it. Piece number 4 was 4 layers thick, and it was actually 2 truncated cones. Therefore, I had to do them separately and then glue them together when I was done. Piece number 5 was a little bit tricky because it's complicated, and part of it is just a circle, not a cone. But I used the exact same method, and for that little circle piece I just mentioned, I used a piece of 4mm foam. Piece number 6 is just a cylinder, I just used a wooden dowel for that. Piece number 7 is definitely the most complicated because of all the different shapes it has. And because piece number 7 is kind of small compared to the rest of the limb, I didn't use my bandsaw for any of these pieces. I cut them all into circles with my box knife, and there are also some engravings on here too. I used the same method as I did with piece number 1. Now as you can see here, all 7 pieces are complete. Now I just gotta put them together, using a small wooden dowel for internal support as well. Now I really had to make my peace with things here because this was only one limb. I had to make a second one. Mother! Now with the limbs completed, it was time to do the middle. I started by cutting a PVC pipe, and because I want there to be scroll paper to come out, as you saw in the beginning of this video, there has to be kind of a slot that goes down the middle. So I just cut that out using my table saw. I gave most of the pipe kind of a jacket of 2mm foam, and this will be important later. Now the scroll paper itself is actually just a vinyl window shade, so in those PVC end caps I screwed in the mounting hardware for the window shade. And then I just added those caps to the limbs to make it easier to assemble later. Because yeah, the final assembly is definitely the most tricky part, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Children, behave.
Now back to that jacket of 2mm foam I wrapped around the pipe. The middle of the scroll has kind of these ley lines on it.
Into 1,000 ley lines.
So I just carved those using my wood burner after marking where exactly they go with a Sharpie. That was pretty sharp of me, don't you think? The middle part also has like this star thing on it, so I just drew the pattern for that by hand, transferred that to a piece of 4mm foam, and then just glued it on like so. Now this is the first time I've done this, but the client for this scroll wanted there to be dragon text on the paper. And I was going to do it with a colored pencil at first, because I wanted the text to be kind of faint and not too obvious in the finish. However, the colored pencil was actually too faint, and it took forever to write a character in it. So I ended up doing the whole thing with a brown Sharpie instead. And let me tell you, it was a lot easier to do it like that. Yeah, it did take a while to write all that text, but it turned out pretty alright in the end. Now with the text all done, it was time to give the scroll paper itself its texture. For that, I just used beige spray paint, but I made sure that I didn't spray it in a uniform coat. I wanted this to look like paper. And the last thing to do for the scroll paper was all those lines and the circles. I drew all those just using a brown Sharpie, and for the circles, I just kind of added these highlights using blue paint. As for the rest of the scroll, I used the same thing I always do for the primer, which is 2 coats of PlastiDip. And after the paint job, I just spray painted metallic gold all over the thing. And we're almost done. Now this is something that took some trial and error to do correctly. I wanted to actually make those purple gems myself instead of just using rhinestones. But because I don't have any originals to work with, I had to make the originals myself. So for that, I just used Sculpey and baked those in the conventional oven. My first attempt, I tried using this stuff, insulation foam. And they turned out okay, but insulation foam floats in the silicone that I used to make the mold. So that's like $10 worth of silicone wasted right there. And I'm still beating myself up over that. It's like, why didn't I think of that before actually trying to make it?
Don't beat yourself up over it.
I don't know, I am an idiot sometimes. Anyway, I proceeded to make the mold again using the Sculpey pieces this time. And for the mold, you already know this, but I used silicone for that. And it turned out pretty well. Then I just cast all the gems with resin and then glued them right onto the limbs. I really like these. They stay a lot more true to the actual Elder Scroll in the game than just using rhinestones. Now, here's the tricky part I mentioned earlier, which is the final assembly. I basically had to screw the limbs to the PVC pipe in the middle, while at the same time getting the window shade to fit in the and mounting hardware. And this part of the process is always the biggest pain in the rear to do, but I got it in, and I used 2mm film and some Worbla to cover up the screws, and then finished painting it with gold paint. And the very, very last thing to do was to paint those handles red. And for that, I just painted 3 coats of bright red. And we're done. That is my Elder Scroll. I was extremely pleased with this one, especially since I got to make the gems this time. And that gold spray paint gives a really good metallic finish, if I do say so myself. And you can well guess I was a little hesitant to ship it out to the client. I kind of wanted to keep it for myself because, well, my first Elder Scroll I still have, and it's really bad. But yeah, that is going to do it for this one, guys. If you'd like me to make one of these for you, there is a link in the description that will take you to my Etsy shop. You can just go ahead and order one, or contact me and we'll go from there. However, if you want to buy an Elder Scroll, I would wait until November 11th because I'm going to be running a Skyrim anniversary sale that week. 20% off all things Skyrim, including custom orders. So if you want something from Skyrim that I haven't made yet, it counts. And if you've got any suggestions for stuff that you want me to make in the future, or you've got feedback on how to make my videos better, the comment section is the place to go for that. And as I said before, more subscribers are always nice, but that is up to you. Thank you so much again for watching my video, and that'll do it. I'll see you in the next build.